Previously on Eyewitness World War II, Invasion Italy.
Victory in North Africa.
I call on every man to fight with the last round and the last breath.
Our advance has now spent its force. Both armies are almost at a standstill.
They'll break their teeth on it.
"80 years ago, when fascism and the forces of evil threatened to conquer the world, brave men and women from around the globe united to bring humanity back from the brink of destruction. One of these campaigns was waged in the very heart of Europe. There, over 300,000 people lost their lives. But through determination and sacrifice, the soldiers of this campaign helped shift the tide of the entire war. These are those soldiers' remarkable first-hand accounts, based on their own words and shot by combat cameramen. This is the story of the eyewitnesses of World War II and the invasion of Italy.
We are achieving what is certainly one of the most complete surprises in history. Practically no opposition to the landing, and I can't believe my eyes. I see no machine gun or other fire on the beach.
The invasion has caught Albert Kesselring, the commander of the German forces in Italy, off guard. Now, Lucas finds himself at a figurative fork in the road. Play defense and secure the beachhead, or go on the offensive and continue the attack towards Rome itself.
The only thing to do is what I'm doing, getting a proper beachhead and preparing to hold it, keeping the enemy off balance by a constant advance against him by small units, and not committing anything as large as a division until the Corps is ashore and everything is set.
Day by day, more Allied troops arrive at Anzio, and for a week, Lucas continues his beach buildup and slow advance. But the German army is already on the move.
I'm bringing battalion after battalion up to help slow down or hold the enemy's advance. Every yard is important to me. As I traverse the front, I'm confident that the Allies have missed a uniquely favorable chance of capturing Rome and of opening the door on the Gustav line. I'm certain that time is our ally.
There is never a big breakthrough except in storybooks. The situation, from where I sit, is crowded with doubt and uncertainty. I expect to be counterattacked in some force, maybe considerable force, tomorrow morning, engaged in a hell of a struggle.
Trapped on the beach, with their backs to the sea, Lucas's invasion force is now faced with 70,000 German soldiers. The carnage at Anzio is about to begin.
We're in the lead position. We're cut off from the rest of the battalion. The Germans are trying to drive us off the beachhead. They launch the attack at daybreak, a blistering artillery barrage.
After almost dying near the Gustav line from an artillery wound, Captain Felix Sparks has done the unexpected. He lives. After recovering from his injuries, he's offered a one-way ticket out of the war. But for Sparks, that's simply not an option. He leads 230 of his men into combat in the Battle of Anzio.
As the barrage lifts up here out of my foxhole, the Germans are coming after us. They've tanks. Shoot them. The German infantry comes pouring in. Several hundred of them. Within 5 hours of the German attack, almost half of the men of my company are killed or wounded. We can't evacuate because of the constant fire. Then, a German half-track approaches with a white flag. Captain, you have many wounded, and we have many wounded. Would you agree to a 30-minute truce so that we can both evacuate our wounded? I immediately agree and order all firing stopped. After the brief truce, the battle rages on. By late afternoon the next day, I'm down to 28 men. The Germans are streaming around both flanks. The following morning, I withdraw my remaining men to a small hill. We have no food, no water, and we're almost out of ammunition. Completely encircled by German forces. The Germans can overrun us at any time, but they're trying to push to the sea. They leave me free to direct artillery. I don't know how many rounds field artillery fires. By the time the battalion is ordered to break out, of the 230 men of the company, only the sergeant and I make it back.
There's an urgent necessity of extending the terrain we've conquered. Every square foot of the beachhead is still in range of the enemy guns.
After fighting at Sicily and Salerno, Sergeant Audie Murphy has now been fighting in Anzio. He and his men have been tossed immediately into the carnage.
Night and day they batter the men. This is the worst moment. Just ahead, the enemy waits silent. It is far better when the guns open up. The nerves relax, the heart stops its thumping, the brain turns to animal cunning. The job lies directly before us, destroy and survive. As if the fire were a prearranged signal for action, all hell erupts.
The Allies find themselves at one of their lowest points in Italy, pinned down at Anzio with their friends dying all around them, and the German army intent on throwing them back into the sea. If there's any chance of victory in sight, Audie Murphy, Felix Sparks, and the thousands of other men fighting tooth and nail can't see it. The success of the Italian campaign, and potentially the entire war, hangs in the balance. After a long day, Audie Murphy hears a friend singing a song.
Oh, gather round me, comrades, and listen while I speak of a war, a war, a war, where hell is 6 feet deep. Along the shore, the cannons roar. Oh, how can a soldier sleep? The going's slow on Anzio, and hell is 6 feet deep. That death awaits, there's no debate. No triumph will we reap. The crosses grow on Anzio, where hell is 6 feet deep.
"60 miles east of Anzio, the Allies prepare for another attack.
Propaganda drops leaflets saying, "Italian friends, beware." We have until now been especially careful to avoid shelling the Monte Cassino monastery. The Germans have known how to benefit from this. But now the fighting has slipped closer and closer to its sacred precincts. The time has come when we must train our guns on the monastery itself. We give you warning so that you may save yourselves. We warn you urgently, leave the monastery. Leave it at once. Respect this warning. It is for your benefit.
The first flight's over. Our A-20's from our group. Followed by the medium bombers, the B-26s and the B-25s. They're followed by the B-17s. They knocked the top of the mountain off practically, pulverized the area.
Between bomb runs, artillery pounds the mountain.
The artillery is landing smoke screens so you can't see who you're shooting at.
absolute hell. Mortar bombs rain down, never-ending smoke shells meaning there's no day. It takes all our nerves to move from our position.
They drop 1,150 tons of explosives and bombs on the Abbey. The entire top of Monte Cassino is reduced to a pile of rubble. This is a mistake. They're making more hiding places for the Germans.
More than 300 civilians are killed in the bombing, and yet the attack still doesn't break through the line. General Mark Clark, in charge of the American army in Italy, addresses the reality of the situation to a fellow commander.
You mentioned being shocked with the slowness of the attack. I am too, but probably not to the extent that you are, for I have seen the reasons for the slowness of progress in Italy. They are terrain, weather, carefully prepared defensive positions in the mountains, determined and well-trained enemy troops, and grossly inadequate means at our disposal.
Frustrated by the lack of results along the Gustav line and their near defeat at Anzio, Generals Clark and Alexander look to make a change. A month after landing at Anzio, General Lucas is relieved of his command. And his replacement is ready to get to work.
Let me tell you something, and don't ever forget it. You play games to win, not lose. And you fight wars to win. That's spelled W-I-N. And every good player in a game and every good commander in a war has to have some son of a bitch in it. If he doesn't, he isn't a good player or commander. It's as simple as that. No son of a bitch, no commander.
One of America's toughest commanders, General Lucian Truscott, has led the 3rd Infantry Division throughout the Italian campaign, fighting in Sicily, Salerno, and along the Gustav line. In order to break the deadlock at Anzio, Truscott will have to outsmart one of the greatest generals of the war, Albert Kesselring.
Enemy air attacks come at frequent intervals, both day and night. These raids have a serious impact upon morale. Life is tense as it always is when men live close to death. At Anzio, it's never dull, easy, or quiet. The beachhead has come close to disaster.
Amid terrible weather and rising casualties, a deep stalemate settles in at Anzio. Truscott prepares his men to shatter the German lines.
General Alexander has outlined his intentions in a conference with the Army commanders. The 5th and the 8th Armies are to attack simultaneously. The 8th Army to break through the Cassino defenses, while the 5th Army will break through the mountainous areas. The beachhead forces at Anzio are to be prepared to attack on 24 hours' notice. in the direction of the rear of the German main forces. These operations are to destroy the German forces and drive the remnant far north of Rome.
The assault on Cassino comes first. Thousands of Allied troops from 9 different countries attack the monastery and surrounding town.
The Germans' guns are blasting us so effectively that we're obliged to throw ourselves flat and crawl around looking for cover. It seems impossible men can live in such a holocaust. I grope blindly towards a shell hole filled with lifeless bodies. I claw frantically to burrow deeper.
Send patrols to keep up spirits at all posts. Order your men to stay where they are at any cost.
We hang on grimly until the exciting news arrives. The monastery is in our hands. Pure joy! I can hardly believe that at long last, our task is done.
The Allies finally break Kesselring's Gustav line. Troops pour through the Cassino breach and pursue the fleeing German troops. Days later, Operation Buffalo begins at Anzio.
The words came. Operation Buffalo will launch at 0630. There is no sight or sound to indicate that more than 150,000 men are tensely alert and waiting. There's a crash of thunder and bright lightning flashes against the sky behind us as more than 1,000 guns, infantry cannons, mortars, tanks, and tank destroyers open fire. From the southeast appear 3 groups of fighters and light bombers, their silvery wings glinting in the morning light. H hour has come and the battle is on.
The Germans stagger, but fanatical and desperate they recover. With the tables turned, they fight like insane men. They face annihilation.
We advance into the teeth of the German defenses and minefields. Allied casualties are heavy. We lose 4,000 in the first 5 days. But finally, on the afternoon of June 4th, 1944, American troops enter Rome.
But not everyone is ready to celebrate.
Rome is but another objective on an endless road called war. During the bitter months in Anzio, we dreamed of a triumphal entry into the great city. There were plans, promises, threats of wholesale drinking and fornication. Now that our dream is an actuality, a vast indifference seizes us. Pitching our tents in a public park, we sleep until our brains grow soggy and life oozes back into our spirits.
While the world rejoices at the capture of Rome and the fall of the Gustav line, Albert Kesselring rallies his army and begins his next defensive tactic. Force the Italian campaign to continue and claim many more lives.
The Allies utterly failed to seize their chances. In fact, no attempt was made in our rear area at all. It is a relief that the enemy forces are being remarkably cautious. ground is not unfavorable for the delaying action I have in mind.
2 days after the liberation of Rome, any mention of the capital is wiped off the front pages by events in Normandy, France.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a momentous hour in world history. This is the invasion of Hitler's Europe, the 0 hour of the Second Front.
Hitler demanded that the retreat be stopped and the defensive resumed. I fly to his GHQ. I insist I should be left a free hand in Italy. I can guarantee, unless my hands are tied, to delay the Allied advance appreciably, to hold it at least in the Apennines, and thereby create conditions for the prosecution of the war in 1945, which can be dovetailed into your general strategic scheme. I won my point.
Since 1943, the Germans have been using slave laborers to create a new line of defense in northern Italy known as the Gothic Line. A highly developed series of strongpoints, stretching for about 200 miles across the peninsula. It features 2,376 machine gun nests, 479 gun positions, and concrete bunkers. The line blocks every route north. The Gothic Line immediately becomes hellish for the Allied troops running up against it. As the rain and snows of winter begin to set in, the Allied advance is once again stuck in the mud. Luckily, they have a group of highly skilled soldiers who have been training for this very moment. The 10th Mountain Division is an American unit of mountaineers and skiers specially trained to fight in mountainous, snowy terrain. They've been training back home for a year and a half, and now they finally have an opportunity to make a major contribution along the Gothic Line.
We're deep in the mountains of the Gothic Line. We quickly reach the heights. When we reach the top, all hell breaks loose.
Our men perform like veterans. We inflict heavy losses on the Germans, and more than 1,200 prisoners are taken.
Riva Ridge.
Mount Belvedere.
Revenge is sweet.
The enemy is giving up in large numbers.
To my surprise, the remarkably good American 10th Mountain Division launched an attack which speedily led to the loss of the dominating heights of Monte Belvedere.
The 10th Mountain has done its part, making a major dent in the line. As spring arrives, the Germans are on their last legs, facing the brink of defeat in Europe. 2 men head into the mountains, ready to destroy the Gothic Line and end the war in Italy. The line will not be the only obstacle they face.
I'm defending people that don't like me. But then, when I really think hard about it, it's the only country I've got. I don't have any place else to go, so I might as well fight and preserve this. What makes me really angry is the fact that nobody gives us any words of encouragement or any words of thanks. It is thought that we aren't able to fight, And we are cowards because we're black.
Vernon Baker is a second lieutenant in the all-black 92nd Infantry Division. In 1941, Baker quit his job as a railroad porter to join the military. First, he's rejected by a racist recruiter who states, "We ain't got no quotas for you people." He is eventually admitted into the Army and made an officer. Baker and the men of the 92nd have spent their lives in a country that doesn't treat them fairly, but they find themselves fighting for it in the mountains of northern Italy anyway. After multiple battalions are decimated, attempting to secure a group of strategic hills along the Gothic line, Baker and 25 of his men are tasked with taking the heavily fortified area and neutralizing a dug-in enemy.
The whole regiment has been trying to take these hills near Castle Aganaffi, and battalion by battalion gets cut to pieces trying to get up there. After the 2nd Battalion gets back down, we know it's our turn. It's Hill X, Y, and Z, and then the castle. We can see the ruins of the castle. It's 3 miles behind the enemy lines. I get to the top of Hill Y and then see this big drop. I tell my sergeant that I'm going down to see what's there. I see a car door on the side of the hill. I try to pull it. Nothing happens. So I put a grenade under the door. It blows open. A German sticks his head out, so I shoot him. I toss a grenade down the hole. There are 3 more Germans in there. Adrenaline. I am just full of adrenaline. I go on down, another hole. I take a grenade and toss it in. There are 3 more people in there. The 3rd one, blow the door open. There are 2 more people in there. I toss a grenade in and spray the place with a machine gun. Clean it up. I go back up the hill. The Germans send soldiers out to get us. The captain says he's getting reinforcements. I know he's not coming back. I make a decision to stay. My men look at me. I know what's on their mind. Lieutenant, are we going to stay here and die? I give orders to shoot at anything that moves. None of you move. That's how we survive. I lose most of my men from mortars. On the way back, I lose a couple more men. There are snipers up on them hills. We go back to the bottom of Hill X, and I barf my guts out. The adrenaline stops running now. Most of the people that were up on that hill, they're dead now.
The next day, Baker returns to the scene of the battle. Because of the previous day's heroics, the German army has left hills X, Y, and Z and abandoned Castle Aganolfi. Although Baker has achieved his mission objective, it comes at a high cost. Out of the 25 men who go up the hills, only 6 return.
I wake up in the middle of the night, and I think about the guys. I think about the 19 souls that gave their all. If not for them, I probably wouldn't be here myself.
By late April, the Gothic line is crumbling, but the Germans continue to fight. Members of the Japanese-American 442nd Regimental Combat Team join the effort to destroy the enemy and drive them from Italy.
We've come to the German line. They want us to break it. Our company commander says, the war's over. They're negotiating now, but don't tell your men. We'll keep on pushing, otherwise, they might delay this.
After witnessing the attack on Pearl Harbor with his own eyes, Hawaiian native Daniel Inouye attempts to enlist in the military, but is denied because of his race. But as the military ban on Japanese Americans is lifted, Inouye learns that an essay unit is being formed, and so he drops out of college and enlists in the army. Japanese American soldiers first arrived in Europe in 1943, waging war throughout Italy and France. Now they're at the Gothic line, ready to put a final nail in its coffin and end the war. On April 21st, while on patrol, Inouye is shot in the stomach.
It's a funny thing. There's no pain. I check. There's a little hole there, but I don't feel bad, so we just continued.
He takes out his would-be killer, and miraculously, he continues his objective without missing a beat.
Then a couple hours later, I come across 3 more machine gun posts. I figure I'll do what I can. I'm lucky. I have a whole bag of grenades. I knock out 2 more nests. The third one, I'm getting ready with a grenade in my hand. I turn around and a German shoots a rifle grenade and hits my elbow. I have the presence of mind. I look around for my grenade. I tell my men to hit the ground. What if it exploded? But it's in my right hand, frozen, clenched in a fist that doesn't belong to me anymore. I take it out and throw it at the German. Someone is looking after me, because it is accurate. Right in his bucket. Now my limb is just hanging, and the blood is just shooting out. I crawl up and lean against the tree, and tell a medic to cut it off. He says, no, I must be half crazy. What would a sane guy do? It takes 9 hours to evacuate me.
Both Daniel Inouye and Vernon Baker are awarded the Distinguished Service Cross for their incredible actions along the Gothic line. Still, because of their race, it isn't until 1997 and 2000 respectively that each man takes home the Medal of Honor, the highest decoration in the U.S. military. Because of groups like the 10th Mountain Division and soldiers like Daniel Inouye and Vernon Baker, the Gothic line is broken, and the German army is on the run. As Allied forces come down from the mountains, the end of the Italian campaign and the war is in their grasp.
Great battles of the European war moving swiftly to a climax. Everywhere the enemy is in disorder as the Allied armies, penned up for bitter months in the mountains, stretch their legs in magnificent strides across the plains. The task in Italy is clear: destroy the enemy.
A surging Allied army streams across the Po Plain and joins the final effort to destroy the German army and end the war once and for all.
Mussolini is dead in a howling mob in Milan, where fascism was born. There are none to mourn.
The German radio has just announced that Hitler is dead. In the Mediterranean, Germany gives up all of Italy.
This is a solemn but glorious hour. I wish that Franklin D. Roosevelt had lived to see this day. General Eisenhower informs me that the forces of Germany have surrendered to the United Nations. The flags of freedom fly all over Europe.
Victory in Europe as the Big Three announce the downfall of Nazi Germany.
The troops of the 15th Army Group have so smashed the German armies in Italy that they've been virtually eliminated as a military force. Ours was a hodgepodge army in Italy, and one of the miracles of the war is the fact that instead of splitting into fragments under the stress of battle, we became the first army in history to advance from the toe to the top of the Italian boot, taking Rome in its stride. It is true that, particularly after the Allied invasion of France, we were a forgotten front, which never had enough men or enough equipment to mount a quick, decisive, and fatal blow at the enemy. But throughout the campaign, we were able to tie down approximately 1 million of the enemy, 800,000 Germans and 200,000 Italians, in a manner that made other Allied offenses more crushingly swift. If ever proof were needed that we fought for a cause and not for conquest, it could be found in the cemeteries. Here is our only conquest. All we ask of Italy is enough of her soil in which to bury our gallant dead.
In the almost 2 years of the Italian campaign, there are over 1 million casualties. Survivors ship out of Europe and return home to heroes' welcomes. And Lieutenant Vernon Baker muses on what is gained and lost in warfare.
I look at things a little differently than I did before the war. When you're in a life and death situation, and you have companions that you depend on, you know that they depend upon you. You see a man get shot, it's kind of tough. I usually think of myself as a killer, that maybe I took lives needlessly. I think about some of the lives I've taken on the other side. The enemies, they had dreams and goals to reach just like I do. War is not a contest. I'm thinking that war is one of the most horrible things that a supposedly civilized human being has devised. The word hero doesn't do anything for me. I don't consider myself a hero. I only consider myself a soldier. Give respect before you expect it. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Remember the mission, set the example, keep going. We have a job to do, and we do it.